Hello friends, this is Odds. I passed the polygraph test, don't try me. And today I'm doing two things at once. I'm going to be showing you my favorite skin on every single survivor. I did the same thing for Killer some time back, and even though I thought you wouldn't care, many people found it interesting. So here it is. This is the same but for survivor. And at the same time, I'm going to give you a lore accurate 4-perk build for every survivor. I'm going to use every perk in the game, no exceptions. I'm pretty sure I didn't leave a single one out. But unfortunately, this comes with a problem because there's only 95 perks for survivors, and you actually require more to fill up all the slots. So there will be just about 13 perks that I have to repeat in order to not leave anyone without empty perk slots. But other than that, every perk has been used only once, and I think it will be interesting. Now, I've been basing this off their lore, their archives, the characters that have them, as well as their original material, like the shows, the films, and so on, to the best of my abilities. So yeah, with that, this is my favorite outfit on Dwight. It looks a bit weird. I just kind of like it. It's like something I would wear. So I kind of dig it. It's a bit strange though. I feel like I haven't found my perfect outfit for Dwight. Now, the perks that he would run, I think this build is amazing. Better together. Dwight is a struggling leader, so obviously he's also kind of anxious, so you would expect him to want to be together with other people and to know what's going on, which Better Together allows, and to encourage people to come to him, which would of course allow him to prove himself and to maybe send out people and encourage them with his lacking leader abilities. But we also know that Dwight is a bit of a coward. He doesn't always perform as well as he'd like. So the dungeon perk self-preservation actually comes in and fills this build really nicely, because when things get rough, Dwight would probably duck and hide, and I think it represents him really well. Moving on to Meg. Now obviously she's one of the more athletic characters. She's a track runner. The sprint burst, her own perk, makes perfect sense. I think Fixated also makes a lot of sense. She would be aware of her surroundings and what kind of track she's leaving. The description of these perks also mentions goals and being single-mindedly fixated on achieving those goals, which perfectly makes sense if you read her lore. Now, Dance With Me is the last one I added, and I think it also makes sense. Meg is used to being stalked. Meg is no stranger to trying to avoid. In fact, if you read her archives, she tries to get away from the police successfully and throw them off on escape. So Dance With Me actually makes a lot more sense on her. And Meg also gets injured at one point in her story and still perseveres and comes out stronger as a result. So resilience, I think, goes on well with her archive and also with the rest of the builds. This is still is actually a pretty good build in terms of gameplay, which is not the main goal, but it does work out. And this is my favorite outfit of Meg that we have right now. This is by far my favorite Claudette outfit. So Claudette obviously is a botanist, so it makes perfect sense that she would have botany knowledge. She is a bit awkward. She did get bullied in school for being different, but she's deeply caring and she does create bonds. Not quickly, but she does create bonds and helps other people over the internet. That's something that we know about her story. So it makes perfect sense that she would have aftercare, a perk that connects her to some other survivors after they interact and for a while afterwards. She also really likes trinkets and science, if you read her archive lore. So it makes sense that she would be the one to find cures when searching for things, and even find other things with appraisal. She does have a fondness for science kits and things like that maybe other people do not care so much about. So appraisal and pharmacy, I would say, make perfect sense on her. And this, again, turns out to be a pretty good build if you ever want to run it. Now, Jake is a person that lives off the grid, that actively went out of his way to live by himself. And to me, that means Off the Record is an easy choice. He is literally living in the middle of the woods by himself. We also have had some hints that he's a survivalist, that he is completely self-reliant. We've also seen him hunt. So with all of that into account, self-care I think makes the most sense on Jake. Out of anyone in the in the game, pretty much, he stands out as the one person that would probably know how to patch himself up and take care of himself with very limited materials. Slippery Meat also makes sense. We do know that he's a survivalist, that he is self-reliant, that he sets up traps. If anyone knows how to escape one, or has a good chance to do it, by virtue of their athleticism and their physical strength, I think Jake would be a really, really good candidate. And because we have seen hints of him setting up traps and hunting and being aware of his surroundings, obviously living in the middle of the woods, I think small games also makes quite a lot of sense. It's also a really nice thing that self-care and off the record have a bit of synergy, because you could heal yourself and not be spotted by a perk while doing so. So that makes a lot of sense, and this is my favorite outfit on Jake, by the way. Next up, Nia. Now, it makes perfect sense that someone that jumps off buildings and that is accustomed to that kind of stunts is the one character who can land on their feet without hurting themselves. Balance landings makes perfect sense on her. Urban Evasion, also very self-explanatory. I think it also makes a lot of sense that she would know her surroundings really well and know how to adapt to a number of different situations, as she does live a little bit off the grid as well, and visits the city and explores abandoned buildings and so on. So I think Windows Opportunity fits her really, really well. Now, the last perk is a perk called Counterforce, and I think it also represents her ability to undermine a larger foe. Now, Nia, if you haven't read the archives, she is actually a bit of an activist. She cares about the environment. She cares about, you know, big corporations and so on, but she doesn't fight them head on. Instead, she uses graffiti. She tries to undermine these politicians, these things that she is against by sending a strong message. So I think Counterforce fits this rebel, rage against the machine kind of style of thought that Nia seems to have. And also, this is my favorite Nia outfit. Next, we have Bill. It makes complete sense that Bill would put himself at risk to save others. So Borrowed Time and Buckle Up make perfect sense. There are so many perks that would go on him, to be honest. And then we have No One Left Behind, a perk that actively encourages you to open the exit and then go back to help others, putting yourself at risk. And then Left Behind, which is literally his own perk. He is left for dead. And whether he survives to see another day is, you know, is not always clear, but he will be left behind and be the last man standing if he has to. Makes perfect sense. Although, again, Bill is such a cool character, other perks would fit him just as well. Next up, we have David. Now, David is a bit of a hopeless brawler, but if you read his archives, many of the times he's in trouble because of his own vices. Some of the times he gets in trouble to help others, to help his friends. And he does have some sort of honor, some sort of like moral code. So We're Gonna Live Forever actually is a very good perk on him and fits him just fine. You will also know that he has taken beatings beyond belief and has withstanded like all kinds of pain. So I think Metal Man, even his physical prowess, and Resurgence both fit really well. Resurgence, of course, allowing him to come back from a bad situation. And as a street fighter and as someone who will use objects and anything at his disposal to come out on top, I think Any Means Necessary also encapsulates that. He also, I guess, is one of the more physically strong survivors. So it makes sense that if someone can lift maybe a very heavy pallet, we don't know how heavy they are, that maybe he would be the one capable of doing that. And then we got Laurie. Now, Object of Obsession goes without a saying. She does have a nemesis that constantly chases her, and they are connected. How exactly depends on the canon, but yeah, Object of Obsession makes perfect sense. She is also a character that, even though she is in pain, she shrugs it off, and she doesn't want the people around her to know. She does have this strong facade, and you can see this in several of the Halloween movies, where she tries to be really tough for others, for their sake. So I think Bite the Bullet from Leon is very appropriate. She also tries to help. Now, Decisive Strike, again, is her own perk and makes perfect sense. She will use anything at her disposal to survive. And we did see this in the first Halloween movie and many of the other ones as well. And I think Adrenaline is also a really, really good perk on her because she does always have that, at the end of the movies, she does have this moment where things seem to be going well, where Michael Myers seems to be getting the better of her when Adrenaline suddenly kicks in and she comes out on top. So I think that is appropriate for her. Next up, we got Ace. Now, Ace himself also is a bit of a fighter. He did engage in boxing and got himself beaten up. He probably also got beaten up due to his debts. So I think Lucky Break is actually, not just because of the luck factor being associated to Ace, is actually really, really good. He is a character that is literally trying to get away from his debtors and the people that he has trouble with. So I think Lucky Break makes perfect sense if you read the description. I think Distortion also works really well for this reason. He did escape several times and tried to hide his identity to escape the people that he was in trouble with. So I think these two perks work fine. Ace in the Hole is a perk that's literally just about luck. You find something and it turns out to be better than what you had believed. So I think it makes sense on him. And as a poker player, as of someone who seduces, who scams, I think Deception also fits his build really, really well. This is a bit of an odd build, but it would work out well if you would try to run it. And this is my favorite Ace cosmetic, by the way. Next up is Fang Min, and I think the build for Fang is actually pretty tight. Now, she is a focused competitor, a video game player who struggles with her own confidence at times, who eventually, you know, got depressed and went off drinking, but that ultimately thrives on competition. So Smash Hits is basically her perk. When a mistake is made by your opponent, you will take advantage of it. It also makes sense that she is completely focused and realizes when things are going south to quickly revert them. So Rookie Spirit, keeping a careful eye on objectives, makes perfect sense given what we know of her. It also makes sense that since we're focused on generators and goals, that her confidence would be boosted. She did experience this boost in confidence at her peak when she was very popular. So I think Poise also works out well, both in terms of gameplay and thematically. And then we go Wake Up. And that's where she goes a bit off the rails, stays up long nights, even begins to drink. She is used to that sort of lifestyle, and I think Wake Up, even though it's a very miscellaneous perk, I think fits her build as well. And this is my favorite outfit for Fang. Next up is Quentin. Now Quentin, of course, being hunted by some dream demon, did experience a little bit of denial. So I think this is not happening is appropriate. Unlike some of his friends, he did not succumb to the demon. So you could argue that when things got worse, he did perform better. He obviously does have a dark connection to Freddy Krueger, who he sees. And even feels bad for, because when he learns that Freddy was burned alive, he does feel a connection. And he does feel some sort of sympathy. And of course, as a result of being attacked in his demon, in his dreams, where he sees a demon intermittently, that's the dark sense part, he needs to remain alert and awake, because otherwise he will probably die. As I said, Quentin is actually a really caring person. He is quite in love with Nancy, not that Nancy, but he is Nancy. And I think Will Make It does encapsulate that part of his personality quite well. So I do like this perk on him, and eventually they do make it. So I think it makes perfect sense on him. Next up, we got Detective Tap. Now Tap, obviously, this is after Saw 1, after some of the events of Saw 1, where he got his throat slit and his partner died, and he went completely crazy. He was discharged from the police for misconduct, and he tried to put all the pieces together by himself to find the Jigsaw killer. The Detective's Hunch is his own perk, fits him perfectly. Of course, he would try to clue in everything to figure out what's going on. Deja Vu has a strong component of paranoia, and paired with the horror of failures, drives you to avoid repeating the same mistakes. Now, obviously, Tap is ridden with guilt for the death of his partner, Stephen Singh, and he doesn't want that to happen again. He wants to catch and close the case. So I think Deja Vu and Detective's Hunch both have a nice synergy, and it makes perfect sense that he would have that paranoia and that he would try to learn from his mistakes. Now we've seen that Tap himself literally crawled his way out with a slit throat out of Jigsaw's lair and survived. And as a result, he would be, to a degree, incapacitated and hurt. So since we have to give No Mither to someone, I think it would make sense that No Mither would go with Tap. And obviously with Tenacity and No Mither, that means that anytime the killer downs you, you would be able to pick yourself up and crawl at the same time. And you would never truly stay down, which I think makes quite a lot of sense for Tap. Next up is Kate. Now, in a promotional art of Kate and the Clown, you can see her being grabbed by a hand, and with her other hand, she's trying to reach out for a brick on the ground to, you know, smash the clown's face in and escape. That little bit of art, I think, warrants the use of Decisive Strike, because it says something about her personality. If you read her lore, you will also know that she does have this supernatural-like ability where she gets tingles before bad things happen. So I think she's also a really great candidate for Spine Chill, because no other character that we know of has had these things, other than maybe, you know, you could argue that some other characters do have some foreboding senses as well. So I think Spine Chill goes well with her. She's also been said to be very in tune with nature, so I think Calm Spirit fits her really, really well. And her very description literally calls her a hopeful songbird. She did go back to her community, even though she was wealthy, to give back to it and to inspire others. So I think hope does fit her personality quite a bit. Next up, we got Adam. Now, Adam is a teacher, so we're going to be repeating a perk here and using Leader again, because he would be the kind of person to guide others to do just a little bit better. It also has nice synergies with Streetwise. We know Adam was raised by his uncle, and his uncle was very strict and always told him how to make the most out of any situation. So it makes sense that Adam, being a person that had to adapt to a life in Japan and spend lots of times learning a new language and a new culture and ultimately settling down successfully, you know what to do with things. So with Streetwise and Leader, you will make other survivors heal you faster, do things faster, and also do them more efficiently, as Streetwise applies to others. Makes perfect sense. Now, Up the Ante is also a perk that boosts other people's confidence and their odds of success, as it says. So I think that since we had to pick it for someone, Adam was a great candidate. Again, going with the idea that he is a teacher that inspires others. And he is said to be a book smart dude that was not so much into athleticism, but was much rather into reading books and learning by himself. So I think Autodidact fits him just fine. And this is my super cool Adam outfit that I really, really like. Next up is Jeff. Now, we don't have so much to say about Jeff, but we do know a few things. Number one, even though he is a shy dude, he will defend himself. He will stand up for himself. He is a gentle, caring soul, and he is a really, really tough guy that will defend himself if he needs to and help others. We know that he has a heart of gold. He rescued a dog. He helps other people. He does charity work. He's that kind of person. It seems to me like his kind of grit would make him a good candidate for Outer Whale. He would be the kind of person to, to keep his pain for himself. And By the Bullet, I think also betrays that personality of his, where he doesn't want to seem vulnerable to others, and wants to keep it to himself, if that makes sense. I think Deliverance is also a really, really good pick for him. He is a physically strong dude, probably capable of saving himself from the hook with enough strength, but only after helping other people, which I think ties it really well. And as a kindred soul that cares about others, I think he would be the kind of person to organize and help other people help themselves. So I think kindred also suits him quite well. Almost more so than his own perks. Next up is Jane. Now, we know that Jane went through massive hardships and found it, and built herself up entirely. With inspiration from other people, yes, but all by herself. And I think inner strength suits that really, really well. We also know that she is a deeply caring person that wants to help others, not to her own benefit, and also cares about them. So I think empathy and solidarity both go really, really well here. and they actually go well also in terms of gameplay. And much like Kate, she is a person that inspires others with her self-help books, with her talk shows. So I think Hope would also be something you'd expect. As a great speaker and preacher of sorts, she would be the kind of person to inspire others and bring about hope. And this is my super cool Jane outfit, I love it. Now Ashley, obviously, is the kind of dead hard dude that cannot be broken.
What now?
And that will take forever to kill. Because he's so strong and he's so used to facing evil. His final perk, I chose camaraderie, because I feel like, obviously he does work as a team and he does care for his teammates and his crew. But it also makes me smile to think that the entity would take even longer to kill him than other people. Which is what camaraderie really does in the second stage. So yeah, if that doesn't speak tough guy, I don't know what does. Next up is Nancy Wheeler. Now Nancy also is an investigative journalist. She is trying to uncover the truth of what happened at Hawkins. So it makes sense that Detective's Hunch would be one of her perks. And because she's trying to uncover this truth for other people and to help her friends and so on, I think Open-Handed also ties in really well. Both in terms of gameplay, but also in terms of theme. As she wants the truth to be seen by other people as well. Now, I haven't watched the whole show, but I've been told that Nancy did, in fact, draw blood with Jonathan Byers to help find the Demogorgon. And I guess that connection, with that connection, Bloodpack fits in here really well. And I've been also told, and I haven't seen this, that she did, in fact, use her environment to escape her pursuers. So I think Head On also fits her really well. Really well. She doesn't have a lot of cosmetics, but these are my favorite. Now Babysitter definitely goes well on Steve. Could also go on some others, but I think Steve, you know, reputation for being self-centered, I think it fits him best, obviously, as his own perk. I think Visual from Quentin also helps. It's not a fantastic perk in terms of gameplay, but thematically, it also goes really well with him, as he has gone the extra mile to protect those that are vulnerable around him. I think Second Wind goes in a similar way. Steve has been known to be beaten up quite a lot and still came back to do what's necessary. And of course, unlike some of the other characters, he does have a bond with, he's not a lone wolf, he does have a bond with those people that he's trying to protect. And he probably would bond with other people as well. So as such, I think Bond is maybe the most accurate perk that he could run. Next up is Yui. Now Yui is a motorbike rider, so I think that more than anyone else, it would make sense that she would know her way around tools, around engines, around repairs. So I think Technician is actually her best perk out of anyone else. She probably would know how to repair engines and do it quieter. So Technician is an opener. I think it goes really well on her. She also is, I don't know if you've seen, but in some fantastic shape. She is a very athletic person. So it seems to me like she would be one of the people to have an exhaustion perk and actually be able to outrun the killer for a fair amount of time. So I think Life works out well on her as well. Now we do know that when she was attacked by a weird stalker, she did fight him off successfully and avoided what could have been, you know, maybe even death. So I think the Decisive Strike we're gonna bring again. It makes sense on her. But she's not self-centered. She does have a team that she cares about, her gang, and she will go to any lengths to help them out. And she has done that in her story. So it also makes sense that she would be willing to fight until the bitter end. And as her team gets more and more in trouble, she would increase her power with, you know, healing and hooking to match that threat. So I think this build with Desperate Measures on Felix makes perfect sense on her. Next up, we have Zarina. Now, Zarina, much like Nia, is a bit of a bleeding heart. She does care about other people. She does care about social injustice. And she constantly goes out of her way to interview people, to expose their problems to the wider public. So I think solidarity goes really well. She will go through many means to achieve this. She has been known to change her alias, to change her appearance, to go undercover, to shed light on these issues. So I think Deception should be a perk that she runs. Her own perk, Red Herring, is also very appropriate. Both of these perks are around lockers, which I think is fun. And because she does cover her tracks and is aware that some people don't like what she's doing, I think Lightweight would make sense as well, as she would be someone wary of that. Next up is Cheryl Mason. Now, Cheryl does, unlike some of the other characters, she does have, she does meddle with the supernatural and the evil, dark forces. So her perks, Repress Alliance and to a degree Soul Guard, both pretty much have to be on her, as, you know, they are very, very personal. Since she can summon the entity and use the power of the Seal of Metatron to avoid damage. Now, much like other Silent Hill protagonists, Cheryl does carry a radio that plays static when monsters are nearby. So I think Premonition is actually the most close equivalent to what that would be in Dead by Daylight. She does have that ability to foresee danger. And also, don't forget, she literally changed her name to Heather. Well, she didn't know that, but her name was changed to Heather to avoid a murderous, satanic-like cult that was chasing her. And she did have to change her appearance afterwards, and, you know, until this cult was destroyed. So I think Distortion makes sense as well, given that she, like, literally when you start playing her, she is avoiding a private detective. So I think Distortion also goes really well with her. And now Felix, much like Adam, is a self-taught bookworm that will literally pick up books on any subject. I think Auto like that works really, really well on him. And we know that he is a great builder, that he has overseen constructions, that he himself would build little things as a kid. So I think on him, these perks make sense. Build to last, obviously, making more use out of your tools, as well as Saboteur and Breakdown. Being a fairly large, strong dude who's in fairly good shape, I think he would be capable of breaking and sabotaging the hooks and understanding their engineering more than the average survivor. So that's the build I'm going for Felix. Now, Elodie herself is literally a treasure hunter. So I think Plunderers and Appraisal both go hand in hand with her. She would literally find artifacts to give to her benefactor in order to exchange information and money. And sometimes she did this in a bit of a, let's just say, sneaky, illegal way. So I think Quick and Quiet actually makes perfect sense on her. She is a bit of a thief. So I think this perk suits her. We also know from her story that she was eventually kidnapped by a dark order that, you know, loomed over her, that kidnapped her parents and whatnot, that killed her parents maybe. Their fate is unknown. So I think Boil Over also makes sense because she did manage to struggle off one of her captors and free herself, even though, you know, she was later shortly abducted by the entity. So this is the build I would run on her. And this is my favorite outfit. I'm sorry, she's too cute with this. Next up is Jun-Jin. Now Jun-Jin I think is the best candidate in the whole cast to have Soul Survivor. We know that she's very, very ambitious, that she does not mind other people getting axed if it means that she succeeds. So she would like to have a perk that makes her stronger as her teammate is falling. She is extremely ambitious, she is self-built, much like Jane, born into poverty, growing to be extremely influential, and obviously focused on what's important. So I think Visionary suits her really, really well. She is focused on her means of escape and almost nothing else. If the killer is around, she is not going to be a hero. Instead, she will hide. She will build up her resolve and later use it on generators. And as her team is dying more and more, she will succeed more and more at their expense. So I think all of these perks paint a nice picture of her personality as a self-centered, almost psychopathic-like businesswoman. And next up we get to Jill. Now there's so many good perks that could go in Jill. She could have self-care because she heals herself. She could have Autodidact or Build to Last because she progressively gets better at using items in her video games. But we had to settle for 4. Now Blast Mine makes sense. Jill is a demolition or explosives, I guess. I guess it's not exactly the same. She is an explosives specialist and also opens locks. She's also a professional in that, so you could run plunderers if you wanted to. But yeah, this perk doesn't really make sense on almost anyone else other than maybe Jill and perhaps Bill. So we're giving it to her. Makes perfect sense. I think Obstacle Obsession is also really, really suited. Through the events of Resident Evil 3, she literally had a monster, a huge monster, trying to do nothing but murder her constantly. And she did avoid being murdered, especially in the remake, in the most uncanny, close, ridiculous ways. So Flip-Flop and Power Struggle both have synergies in themselves and go well with her character of being able to getting really, really close to death but dodging it last second. Power Struggle also conveys this image of a small person fighting against something bigger than him or herself. So I think it also fits her really well thematically and in terms of gameplay with Flip-Flop. And next we get to Leon. Now, flashbangs are used in Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 4, and I believe also Resident Evil 6. All the games that Leon's basically featured in, you can use flashbangs. It doesn't make a lot of sense that other characters would have this. So I think flashbang suits Leon just fine as his own perk. And then his other perks are actually quite nice. Empathy, I think, is really, really important. Now, you gotta realize, Leon has care for people that are injured or that are vulnerable quite a lot. In Resident Evil 2, obviously, he had to care for Ada when she was injured. He also had to care for Ashley and remove her parasites in Resident Evil 4, blah, blah, blah. He's always looking for the people around him and trying to be their protector. So empathy fits him really, really well, and obviously goes well with his helpful nature and his heroism. Now, I think Breakout also goes really well with this. Particularly in Resident Evil 4, Leon literally has to chase after Ashley when she gets kidnapped by the local Spanish cult. And much like in Dead by Daylight, Ashley does get carried away and needs to break out with Leon's help. And this is a recurring theme throughout the game. And I think it suits Leon really well that he would be able, as a special agent, to rescue other survivors. And for the people, it's a similar logic. Leon literally takes bullets any chance he gets. In Resident Evil 2, he took a bullet for Ada from a net. In Resident Evil 6, he also took basically a bullet for Ada again. And he is known to sacrifice himself, put his life on the line to protect those that are vulnerable. So almost more than anyone else, this would be the kind of person that would risk injury for others. And yep, this out of all the few outfits that Leon has, I think his Resident Evil 4 one is my favorite. So with that, we conclude my take on what the most lore accurate builds are. Feel free to come up with your own. The only rules is that you have to use every single perk, and that you shouldn't repeat perks too much. I repeated a few perks. We had 2 leaders, 2 stakeouts, I think, 2 deceptions, 3 decisives, but I didn't repeat more than I had to. So yeah, let me know if you have a better idea overall, or if you think I missed the mark somewhere. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.